Tallboys and Trackmasters is brought to you by Expert Exhaust. Expect more for your money. MTB Shock Dock, your choice for suspension needs. High Gear Success. From helping racers get sponsored to motorsports event operation and promotion, shift your passion into high gear. Miracle Works Detailing. No cars too dirty. And by Cycle Mart, your motorcycle parts store.
Yeah, for some reason, when I see a lump, my sphincter tightens, I start to tremble, I go all sweaty.
I'm a big fan of the 1.5 pork chop cans, personally.
You gotta make sure you get your protein and carbohydrates all in one shot.
Yep.
Nice looking bike.
That thing would look good with a hot fender too.
Yes, it
It's got
would.
the-
Yeah.
It's got the line.
Yes, it does.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome into episode 76 of Tallboys.
Trackmasters.
Oh, yeah. Best part of the week. Well, as you can see, we are live on location in a top secret vault full of cool motorcycles with tonight's guest, Mr. Cameron Childers. Cameron, thank you so much for coming on the show with us this evening.
I'm glad to be here, man. I'm
Awesome.
excited.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to get to know you a little bit and showcase you and obviously Track 93 this evening. So let's start out with the basics, my friend. Where were you born and raised at?
I was born in Morgantown, and I have lived in Fairmont my entire life.
Cool. So local guy like we are. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
How did you get your start into motorcycles?
So basically, my dad bought me and my brother an XR 100, and I was 9 years old, and we just started riding. We rode at my grandpa's farm until we were good enough to ride at Hard Rock at Bunner's Ridge, and that's basically it.
Cool. Do you any type of motocross or air scramble racing or anything like that growing up, or was it just trail riding?
No, the idea of going to a motocross track when I was a kid was just not going to happen. My dad was just a woods guy. I raced a little bit. I raced in Paul Kuntz series when I was just a kid.
Yeah.
And my dad, he raced quads in Paul Kuntz, and he raced bikes, the adult class, and I rode the race the kids. And so that was really it. Just your normal start out. I had an XR 100, and then I got a CR 80, and then I had a KDX 200.
Sweet.
So, that's kind of where it just started riding, and we rode at Hard Rock a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That was the main place we rode, and just back then, it was some Jeep Trail, but a lot of single track type things, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I raced some, and I was getting ready to race the adult races, and then just kind of got out of it.
Okay. So there was maybe a little bit of a break before you kind of got back into riding.
Oh
racing a
yeah,
little bit?
there was a huge break.
Okay.
So I got my XR when I was 9. I rode up till I was about 14, and then I just got out of the sport, did other things, and I didn't really get back into riding until I was 27 or 28.
Oh yeah. So never too late to start. I know we have several guys that we ride with that got a late start in life. My mom's one of them. She didn't start riding or racing until she was 32. So yeah, never too late to get back into it.
Yeah. Well, I also I still kind of rode some bicycles and stuff like that. But yeah, it was. I had to get used to it again. But I had mountain biked a lot that year. I got back into it, so that helped.
Yeah. That's a good way to kind of get back into the swing of things a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Get your stamina and all that back
yeah.
up a little bit. All right. So we do a little segment with every one of our interview guests, and you're no different. So grab your beers and lend us your ears. It's time for the six pack. All right, Cameron. First up, favorite trail tunes. You listen to any music while you ride?
No, I don't listen to any music when I ride. That's something I was kind of looking at last season, but no, it's all natural, man.
You just got to hear the bike and
I always listen to stuff to get me pumped up before.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to listen while I ride now.
What kind of stuff do you listen to get you pumped up?
Probably stuff that I used to listen to when I was younger riding, like heavy metal music and stuff like that. I listen to a lot of electronic music anymore.
Okay.
But just something high energy to listen to. Yeah.
I always have the MX Verse ATV Unleashed playlist.
Oh, that's some nostalgia for you right there. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
And be remiss to not mention that Mr. Trevor was a little busy this evening. So we've got the third person of the podcast, Tyler Vincent, with us tonight. Tyler, why don't you ask the next question there?
What's your dream bike?
My dream, I kind of have it. That's kind of what I did when I got back into it is I bought a lot of the old bikes that I always wanted a KTM 380 2-stroke. So my top dream bikes were, I always wanted a KTM 380 2-stroke, a KX 500 because it had the power valve. And then I also wanted an XR 650. And then
which is just torture sitting here right beside it, just so you know. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Hey. And then I got a CR 500 as well. It's not fixed up yet, but yeah, my dream bike was a KTM 380.
Yep.
I just thought it was such a cool when I was a kid. I was like, oh man, I want to ride that, and everybody. I remember when it came out, they're like, it's too much. It's too much. No, it's too much for the wood.
My uncle had one when I was a kid, and I really wish that at some point I would have got to throw a leg over
it,
but I never got the opportunity to.
Yeah. I think we all have a bike like that. We were like, oh man, I wish I'd have got to ride that one. Yeah,
absolutely.
For sure.
Well, I know coming over here a couple of times to hang out with you a little bit before we did this, and you open this vault door, and I look and see the 650R sitting there. I was like, me and you're going to get along just fine.
Yeah. I kind of like I just like older 2-stroke bikes. I like a lot of that 99 to 2004 era. I just anything in that era I think is cool.
Yeah.
And I like the modern bikes too. I like them all, man. I'm not. I tell you the weird bike that I always thought would be awesome to have was back in the day they had the Honda CREs, where it was like they sent them to Italy and got modified. Now that would be. I mean, if you could find one, I would definitely wreck it in the woods. I wouldn't care. I would love that. Dude.
Well, it's like everything else, all the European, Australia countries like that, they get all the cool stuff. And we got to have all the safe, non-fun things.
Yep.
Next up, what's your favorite terrain to ride in?
Definitely. I mean, it's so much. This is nostalgia, but it would just definitely be the West Virginia woods, which it would be the north central part around here. I wish I could sit here and tell you that I've gotten to travel a lot with a dirt bike. I know that other parts of the country, they are so spoiled. I went and rode in Texas, and I burnt 2 tanks of gas in a couple different bikes, and I came back here to work on them. I didn't have to wash them off.
Yeah.
And so, but I would say, this area, the little rolling hills like we have, little tiny rock cliffs, and it's just such a mixed, you go somewhere where it's real flat and it's really cool for the first, couple days. And then you're like, it'd be cool to be off cameras right now, So around here,
Need a
this
little
area.
misery in my riding.
Yeah. That spices it up a little bit.
I love sand though.
Yeah.
There was a really cool guy I knew a couple years ago, and we'd ride to his place, and there was this old sand lot, and that's something I do miss around here, though. I love riding in sand, and then obviously after the third hour, you're really, really tired. But the first 15 minutes is really, really cool.
It's different.
Yeah.
Nobody's rode in sand before. You definitely give it a shot.
Yeah, the only sand I've ever gotten a chance to ride in are at the beaches of Hammond, where there's not a lot of it, but
yeah. All right, next up, best trail snack, buddy.
Trail snack? Oh man, I'm a big eater. I don't know. That's a good question. Trail snack? Probably I try to eat sugary stuff. If we're really riding hard, it'd be those little Welch's gummies.
Oh yeah,
a real fast glucose type thing, something like that. Real light on my stomach.
You can ask Tyler anytime that we're out riding. I've always got candy with.
Yeah, something to replace that glucose. And then I always ride with. There's this recovery drink that I ride with, and everybody seems to like it. So I never go riding really without it. Everybody always give them this. It's a wilderness athlete. So I would say that. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Mr. Ty?
What's your must-have trail tool?
Must-have trail tool. I really like having a spark plug wrench. You know what I mean? A wrench that I can get. My little KTM toolkit is what I carry, and it has like the little T handle, and then it has this. I love that little S spark. Having that is nice. And I've really saved a lot of other people with that. You know what I mean? You got your little cousin. He doesn't know what the spark plug's looking like in his bike. You know what I mean? And he's sitting there kicking it. And so yeah, I would say that. Yeah,
that's a good one.
Cool. All right, and last but not least, you can only do 2 mods to a motorcycle. What would they be?
So, like in any money, like
money's not an issue.
Definitely revalve and spring the suspension. That
seems to be a common answer we get from a lot of people.
Without a doubt, that. And if I had to pick one, if I'm in the woods, I'm a boomer about my hand guards. I want wraparound hand guards. I know I'm going to be on the ground at some point, and the levers are probably going to be all right. Now, motocross, obviously, I'm not going to put those on there.
Yeah.
So definitely the suspension, and then next I would say like probably a tire choice.
Yeah.
Or if the handlebars are real weird. A buddy of mine sold me a bike not too long ago. The handlebars were like this. It's so annoying.
Like Pee Wee Herman.
Oh, it's horrible, dude. It's like 1936 out there, and you're like,
the big bicentennial bike.
Yeah, exactly, man. Get me. I need to grow my mustache out more and curl it up. So yeah, that would probably be it. Suspension number one for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a really good place to spend your money with any new bike.
Oh, and I'm like 1.5 of a pro of what the riders are at. I'm going around like 250, 260.
Yeah.
So, and that's 100 pounds more. So I get on that thing and there's like this much left, you know. Oh.
God help him if he ever gets on a CRF 300L. I know we've wrapped on that for a long time on the show, but
yeah.
Good deal, man. Well, I appreciate you answering all that stuff. So obviously, you know, the main reason we're here, we want to talk about Track 93. So why don't you take us through the history of how the track came to be, or even how the idea of putting together a local facility came to be?
So I got into riding as a kid. I raced some at Paul Kuntz series. I really always didn't like that I didn't get to ride one season in the adult classes. And I did other things. I played in a heavy metal band through high school and stuff like that. So I kind of did that weird stuff. And then I started a business, and that took up a huge amount of my time. I had no time to do anything else. And so I eventually got a really great staff, and thank God things worked out, and I was able to kind of start stepping away from things. So riding is one of those things where I don't care how old you are, how long away, you still think about it. And for me, there's just nothing quite like it. You know, I've done a few other high adrenaline things, and riding is just, there's nothing like it. So my brother and me started mountain biking a little bit just because I want to stay in shape. Well, you start mountain biking, you just miss dirt biking, in my opinion. If I'm loading stuff, anything, I'm going dirt biking, right? So what happened was I basically started riding again, and I used to ride behind in Bellevue, behind the Save-A-Lot where they keep the dead bodies.
Fort Hill.
I would park my van there. They found a dead body there for you.
Oh yeah, we know.
So I used to park my van there, and I bought a KDX for $800 off a guy. And I thought I got ripped off at the time because I had been out of the sport so long, and I bought like used mountain bikes and stuff. I was like, well, I probably got ripped off for this $800 bike. But so I was riding there, and there was these two guys on in this side by side, and they were like these oil pipeline guys, and it always cracked me up. They were always riding there, and they didn't ever wear shoes, and they only wore wife beaters. Well, long story short, another one of their buddies set up, and they showed me some other places to ride around, and so I kind of got more into riding, and I went to race again. And, the kind of riding I've always been into was just like a gnarly single track, like almost hard enduro, but not, fully there. Nothing like enduro cross. I kind of started hopping some really big logs and stuff when I got back into it. And I would go to these races, and that single track that you and your buddies ride is nothing like 300 bikes destroying this hare scramble track.
Right.
And I just got frustrated. It's like, I go out and practice and I'm doing these drills and stuff, but I can't replicate a truly destroyed 300 person ride in this track scenario. And so I was sitting there and I messaged, because I raced just a few times. I'm not a great rider or anything, but I raced at Mountain State and New East Coast. Great dudes on both ends of that. And I messaged Richie and I messaged the New East Coast guys, and I said, hey, can I rent the track after you guys have it for the race? I'm like, there's just nothing that's like this where I get to ride. I was like, I go in and I cut this single track on people's properties and I ride this. And I'm like, a Jeep trail that has no topsoil left on it. It's just nothing like it. I was like, can we have a practice day? And I'll get all my buddies, and it didn't really work for them. Right. And so then I came back, I'm sitting there and what do I do with my life? Well, I'm kind of an entrepreneur. So I sat there, I'm like, oh, you're a statistic. Right. And because I Googled, I was like, well, I want some more rut practice. I'm like, well, I bet Pyramid Valley's still open because motocross has a ton of ruts in it. A lot of woods riders think, motocross has no ruts in it. It has tons of ruts in it. So I was like, I bet Pyramid Valley's still around. So I Googled that and I was like, that's weird. I was like, well, how far away is one? And then that's kind of what started me down this road of like, oh, there's probably other dudes wanting to ride and don't have a place to practice. They're probably in the same shoes I am. And that's kind of where it really all came from. And that was the biggest thing that sucked about riding when I was a kid was I lived in town. So I got to stare at my dirt bike. I didn't get to ride it. So
same here.
Yeah. So it was like the combination of, hey, there may be money in this. And then I was like, we could have like a nice park that could fund itself. And, the memories of I never got to have a place to ride. I mean, at that time, I was still riding on mine land illegally.
Yeah.
So every time you went out, you were like, well, I may get ran off this time. You never know. So it was one of those things of like, oh, we could probably build a nice park. And it was kind of fun the way it worked out, where I was looking for a piece of land to do it. I remember I messaged Richie and I was like, hey, how many acres do you need to run a race? And kind of looking around and stuff. And then thank God, basically beside where I always rode, we didn't really ever ride where the park is. We never really rode. There was no trails. Beside that is where the mines were selling all that property. And then thank God it all worked out. And I bought that. And
That's cool. That's something I wanted to touch on because that area right there is near and dear to me because I grew up as the Northern Chairman of the West Virginia Jeep Club for several years. So we were in that area all the time. And I know exactly what you're talking about. It was like you kind of rode past that. And there's a lot of stuff. We refer to that as Hell's Hollow.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah, there was always fun trails and stuff in that area. But that section right there, it was like we never explored or did anything there.
Well, see, and that was the two drunk guys on the side-by-side. They took me to Hell's Holler. Yeah. And we went to, from Bellevue, because see, that KDX, it didn't have a title, but I titled it in Vermont.
Yeah.
And I had a little license plate on there. So I rode from Bellevue to Reesville.
Right.
And we rode to Everettsville and went to the dam.
Yep.
And so that's kind of where I started riding because it was great access. You could park there, but I never really rode where the track was at. But I remember going down, there was like a dirt path there. And I always remember, man, how cool would it be? You come around that turn and you could have like a real track there. And where the track's at now, before I bought it, I took a four-wheeler and I just mashed the grass down into a grass track. And it was horrific. It was a horrible trail. We had fun on it, but and I just remember I just was really like wanting to just, when you ride Jeep Trail all the time, you're so frustrated as a rider because it's like, how cool would it be to have a machine and make this into an actual trail, not a side-by-side or a Jeep Trail. They ride different, Yeah. And so I remember just thinking, oh, this is cool. And I shopped a lot around. And then one day we just came up to ride, and there was a auction sign there. It really felt like God paved the way to do all this, because I never thought I'd have the chance to buy that piece there.
Yeah.
So what's a typical week look like prepping for the weekend of the track now?
Complete chaos.
Complete chaos.
So basically, the weatherman lies.
Yeah.
And then I just get to go outside and look, and I pray that we get some good weather, but I'm just joking. It just depends. That's why I cut Wednesdays out, because it was just becoming too much.
Right.
So basically, like the first thing like the week would look like is like, okay, what's the weather looking like? And that kind of planned it out. Like this past year, 24, we really got blessed with, it was dry enough to constantly work the dirt. I mean, there was a lot of other tracks running out of, it was dusty, and we had to water so much. But like typically I'll start the beginning of the week and I'm like doing all the features. Okay. I'm going to go through and I'm going to say, okay, what's the landings like first? What's the faces like? Make sure those are all looking good. Go through and do those. And then I'm going to say, and that's mostly going to be dozer work and then loader work to clean up the faces at the end. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to say, how whooped out is the track? Because that's another thing. When you loosen that dirt all the time, it really gets whooped out. And so that's the next thing I usually turn my attention to is I'm going through and I'm taking all those whoops out.
Yeah, because all of your braking zones end up extremely whooped out too.
Oh, yeah.
Just from bikes coming through there, chattering the tire.
Oh, totally. Yeah, and I kind of like when it gets whooped out like that.
Yeah.
It's fun. But and I kind of have to judge. I mean, obviously the number one thing is safety. So if there's anything on the track that week, the first thing is like, oh, if this face is getting a little bit of a kicker to it, or there's something I feel like's weird about a landing, that's the first thing that gets messed with. And then you spend a lot of your time, exactly like what you were saying, there's all these PowerPoints throughout the whole track, and that's going to hold water. And then that's really what gives you this inconsistent thing of dirt. And so I'm fighting that a lot. So first thing, features. How's the grading looking? Is it smooth? Have I fixed the PowerPoints? Features that people like Bob Berry Hill. He was a really cool dude that lived on the top of the hill there. So we call that Bob Berry Hill. Everybody loves just full throttle up that. So I try to get that as smooth as I can, depending on how wet it is, because you can make it worse with a dozer if it's real wet. Yeah. But basically all the way up until, Thursday is going to be a really big day if it's dry for me. I'm going to get a lot of stuff prepped in. I usually work till dark on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Monday and Tuesday, I'll be doing like little weird things. Sometimes I'll try to sneak in mowing because that's a pain. I always put that second. The grass always looks like trash, so the track will be a little bit better. You know what I mean? Because no one can. I'll run over the grass, is what their thoughts are.
It's a fair trade-off.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. One thing I want to go back to the history just a little bit. How did the name Track 93 come about?
So Consol number 93 was on that property, and I actually got to meet a lot of guys who worked there, and that's kind of just really the 93 came from, and it just came to me. I thought it was a neat name. That's cool. That's all it was.
So that's how that whole area was always referred to me throughout most of my life. Was, oh man, you got to come out and ride 93.
Yeah,
you got to come ride 93 with us. So
that's cool.
That's how I always knew it as, and I'd only heard Hell's Hollow a few times.
Yeah. Well, see, and I never got to ride there. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I never got to ride there as a kid.
Neither did I.
No, I never even knew it was out there. That's what I'm saying. It took these two drunk dudes on a side-by-side to take me out there. And,
that was my first time riding out there was following James.
Yeah. I only knew the area from the Jeep Club because, dude, it was nonstop. Every Saturday morning, there would be 15, 20 Jeeps meet at Aegis. Guys would unload there. We'd drive to Reesville. Go past the power plant, come in right the way
dead
you
body
guys.
Parking.
Yeah, the dead body park.
Yep.
And it was a cool area. And one of the cool things I remember we used to be able to do was there was a lady there who had a family member who was buried in the one cemetery, like up by the playground area. So every summer we used to load this like 90-year-old lady in a Jeep, and we'd take her
Nice.
up there, and we used to
Yeah.
maintain the cemetery that was right there. I think there was 2 or 3 gravestones, but
Yeah, the ones that creep me out were the child graves.
yeah,
You could ride that one plot
Yep.
with the child graves.
that's the plot that we used to weed eat and stuff
Oh,
all the
okay.
time. So
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Well, that was the thing too I liked about the park. I didn't take any of those trails away.
Right.
You know, like there was only really like 2 things that the park kind of took away from people. But to me, it was all just additive because I don't own anything on that side, and I never stop anybody from riding there. But I can't be like, "Hey, go ride this guy's stuff," you know.
Right.
I know that was one question that I know Trevor wanted to ask you, because that area is very popular for people, obviously side by sides and that type of stuff. You haven't had any issues with people kind of encroaching on the motocross track in that area, or
I mean, there's like some of that, you know. Like the only time it annoys me when guys get on the track is like the middle of the night, right before I got it prepped for everybody to have this nice track.
Yeah.
But thank God there's really not a lot of that. Now, I have a really good friend that lives actually over the hill. He homesteads.
Okay.
His name's Randy.
I
And
think I know where you're talking about.
yeah, he will run anybody off for me. So there's really not a big opportunity. And there's not, and that's the thing too. I've never put any gates up.
Right.
You know what I mean? I try really hard to, hey, you want to drive by, watch the bikes. I try really hard to make it to where there's a lot of side-by-sides that come and they get to do that.
Right.
And it's free. I'm like, yeah, if you're going to hang out here all day, I want you to fill the waiver out, pay the $5. But
Right.
if you're just going through, check it out, man,
That's,
you know?
that's really refreshing to hear, that there's almost like a symbiotic relationship.
Oh,
there
yeah.
Of,
Yep.
you know,
Oh, yeah.
because you look at and hear reports all the time and stuff about, like, say, Hatfield McCoy trails coming into an area and just taking over where all the local people ride and pissing them off, basically. Like,
Well, yeah, I had buddies, man, that came to me and they were like, hey, you bought this land. You need to go out there first thing and put no trespassing signs up. And I was like, why? I'm like, why am I going to do that? I'm like, if you hunted, you know, I went to all the dudes that had hunted there for years.
Yeah.
I knew who they were, who actually hunted there, who's not lying about it. And as I was like working on the track and clearing land and stuff, I met these guys. And I was just basically saying, hey, you can hunt here.
Right.
I'm not cutting you out of hunting. You still get to come here. And like, for instance, there's a really nice guy on that road. His name's Tom. And there was somebody coming down this holler to dump trash.
yeah,
Now, I know Tom now. I'm friends with Tom. He has my cell phone number, and he runs this guy off. So everybody who's a property owner in that is better off now that I'm friends with Tom, and he doesn't want them dumping shingles.
right.
And then Tom
Oh,
loves
man.
my new woods loop to hunt on.
Yeah.
I mean, so it all works
that's
out.
good.
Yeah.
That's
And
good.
they were all, I remember the first time I met him, they were like all worried, like, oh, and it was an older guy who can't walk around anymore. He has the drive, and then they walk just, 50 yards or whatever. And they were like, some guy bought this, and we're not going to get to hunt here anymore. And I was like, no, it's fine. You can't poach them. You know what I mean? I don't want the 4th of July party to be Bambi. I'm like, but you can come during season and shoot these things.
Yeah, just don't post up on the finish line tabletop. And
Oh,
shoot
yeah,
the,
exactly.
Shoot the deer while
Yeah.
racing. You know?
Yeah, you got to have smart people who are like, yeah, I'm like, I tell them, I'm like, if yes, I understand deer season is short, but riding season's short too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We got to have our weekend to ride,
Yep.
regardless of deer season.
One thing I've learned with helping these guys out with our ride is that just having a conversation with people can usually open a lot of doors like that for you.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really cool that the area is kind of helping you take care of what you've put
Oh,
your,
yeah.
your time and money
Yeah,
in.
yeah. Randall, I went down and helped him doze when he homestead there. I dozed him a driveway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he's a cool guy. I can call him anytime, and and he lives off the grid down there, and I can call him and be like, hey, dude, I need help.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of really awesome neighbors. Greg Potts lives on that road, and all the Hott family. I get along with all of them. Their son Zeb rides there. I mean, I think that was the thing too. I really think that was a big part of it and I had friends trying to encourage me to put these signs up and kick people off. I'm like, my goal is to have a cool place to ride. I don't care if someone shoots a buck there. You know what I mean? And now I don't let other people come in that weren't using it before. because I have a lot of people who ride the track. I'm like, hey man, these trails be good. And it's like, yeah, but there's already 10 neighbors that have hunted here 20 years, and I kind of give them the first rights to it.
Yeah,
but
kudos to you for not taking that from.
Yeah.
I try,
They
man.
lived with
Yeah,
that their whole
I try.
life.
Thanks, man. I tried.
So one thing that people might not know, especially if they're motocross guys, is you have a dedicated woods loop there as well. Talk about the process of putting the woods track together.
Well, first I screwed up. So me and my dad and my brother, we love tight, hard, technical single track. You get out there and it's like this cardio thing, and and I like flowy sections of that. And
The love of suffering.
yeah, right. So here's my original thought. Here's how I originally messed up. My original thought was no one is going to come here for the woods loop. They're not. And I'm going to have to make a woods loop that's very different from the Jeep trails they're already riding. And so my thought was I got an E20 excavator and I did a 7-mile loop with this E20 excavator. I made this real tight single track with some pretty hard turns. Obviously, if you're a good rider, you can make it. But it's a workout. It's hard to do quick. It's hard to do correct. Then I opened the park and I started realizing, like when I talked to the customers and stuff, a lot of the people that ride the woods track, they want an easier, funner, faster, something that's more like the hare scramble tracks. Right. I just thought, well, they're not going to want to ride hare scramble loops because they race Mountain State every weekend. They race New East Coast. They don't want to come get the same thing. And so my thought was, let's give them something different. Let's do tight single track. Well, no, these guys love hare scrambles. So we still have the single track loop that goes down through a creek bed, and you have to have these switchbacks, and there's like little extra hills. Yeah, it's fun.
That's my name of the game.
Yeah. And then this year, I went through and I took my dozer and I cut a whole nother loop. Now here was the thought behind it. The only thing I don't like about the single track loop is there's no efficient way for me to clean up the floor of it.
Yeah.
And so if you go, and that's what my dream always was like, okay, you go to Hard Rock and you ride, or you go to, Hell's Hollow beside our place, or you go beside the dead body parking in Bellevue. You go to those places and it's like, what sucks about this trail? It's bombed out beyond, I can't even make a new rut. The asphalt's not as hard as this dirt. So that was what I always wanted to do. Well, I always felt like I didn't have a small enough dozer. I thought, well, if I go in the woods with my D4H, it will be like a road.
Yep.
And I was like, this will suck. Well, then I started like measuring things out. And I started like looking at the parts of the woods loop that people like the most. It was as wide as my D4. So then I was like, oh, screw it. So the whole point of the new loop and what I love about it is I ran the dozer through there, but I can go through and dress the forest floor. I can go through and take all the ruts out. And then it's really cool because then you're getting to ride a woods loop where you're putting the ruts in. It's not a rut from your grandpa. That was always the trails I had to ride. It's like, oh, we have a mud hole beside a hard packed ditch.
Yep.
And that was what was really cool about the new woods loop. And my whole plan this year with it is I'm just gonna make another like mile loop off of it. And that's another thing I got wrong. I thought everybody would be like so gung-ho about it. It has to be the longest trail possible. No, there's like a ton of kids that come.
Yeah.
There's dudes testing out bikes. They want to be gone for like 15 minutes from the truck.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that. You know what I mean? I just kind of missed the mark on the woods. And we did have some hardcore guys like you that would love the single track, and that's still there. But I think the new woods loop is where it's at. People seem to like it better.
It sounds like the new the new loop would be definitely geared towards somebody who's putting a bike together for a
100%. Yeah, like if you like,
so I'll definitely be making my way down.
Yeah, dude.
He's been putting together a KTM 350 for Mountain State
Nice.
This year, so
Yep.
Yeah, and there was a dude I remember last year, like literally he was in the same shoes. He had built a 350, and he was like, I'm getting horrific arm pump. I haven't rode in 3 years. He was a really nice guy. He was fast. He's one of those dudes who kept saying, I'm going to do terrible. He did great, but he was in the same boat. He would ride real hard for a while on that loop and then slow down. But it is just really cool to get. That was a dream come true for me to be in the woods with my dad. We laid this trail out and get to clean it up get to run it over a weekend and then really get to clean that. Because me and my dad, that was a big part of me buying the land was my dad could never afford land and I could never afford land up to that point. And me and him always had to ride somewhere that was illegal.
Yep.
And it was just a big deal to me and him to finally be like, oh, I can ride somewhere that's mine, you know?
That's cool.
So
That's really cool. So you kind of talked a little bit before about how, you called Pyramid Valley. They're not around anymore. Just from the outside looking in, I saw that. Like I used to ride Pyramid years ago growing up. Camelback, which was right down the road from Pyramid, for those that are old enough to remember that. But you fill that void of having the local track. Now, obviously, with that, and what I think probably hinders a lot of people from starting something like this is the liability aspect. Can you talk about that a little bit, like the insurance and kind of the behind the scenes stuff about protecting your butt, basically?
yeah. So really, I got a shout out to a guy named Greg Hinton, who's a really good friend of mine. And I was in college. And I learned about 5 things the 4 years I was at college, and Greg Hinton was probably 3 of them. So Greg Hinton's a great man. He was the mayor of Fairmont at one time, and he taught me a lot about liability in business. Track 93 does not own the land that the track is on. It leases the land, and it has an insurance policy. And West Virginia is a sue-happy state. Like, you could even look on there, certain insurance things you can't get in West Virginia because, it's terrible.
Right.
And that scares people off. But the reality is they have to prove that you were negligent in that. And Greg, he's a great lawyer, and he taught me. I had some law classes, and I kind of based everything off that. It's the idea of that Cameron Childers doesn't own it, Track 93 owns it, Track 93 doesn't own the land. And then it gets complex in the fact that, like, trespassers, if it's an open and obvious risk, then you're not liable for it. And that's people coming to your land, and that's people who you invitees to your land. And if you look up the liability laws of West Virginia, well, anybody can kind of sit there and say dirt bikes are dangerous. I mean, if you think about it too, like, what most people worry about is actually misplaced doubt. Because, for instance, everybody would worry, okay, I made a new double, and everybody rode that day, but one guy hit that double and he messed up and he got hurt. Well, the judge is basically, and the jury's going to sit there and say, well, 100 other guys rode that jump. You just messed it up. What they forget, the liability comes in with, like, somebody got hurt on the track. A guy that works at the track, he drives his truck up to help this guy. In the hustle and bustle, it's kind of on the track. Well, now this guy gets loaded up, and then somebody's not paying attention, and they green flag everybody else on the onto the track, and now they hit that truck. Well, now you're liable because you did something that really created that risk. It's not necessarily somebody riding and getting hurt, because that's an open and obvious risk.
Right.
But you know what? At the end of the day, I can sit here and I could talk to you about laws, and I could sit here and tell you about exposure and all that. What's it for? I worked every single day of my 20s. I worked basically every single day of my 30s so far. Why did I even get there's no U-Haul on a hearse. Okay. Why did I get the land? Why did I want to build the track? I wanted it for positive-minded people who want to come out and want to ride. And yeah, of course there's going to be evil people out there. Of course there's going to be ignorant people that don't want you to have something. Of course somebody's not going to like this or not. But it's all risky. It's all risky. I mean, yeah, they could sue me and I lose the track. Hey, but you know what? What would we be out? We would be out a great place to ride. What if I'd have never started it?
Yeah.
Then we'd have never gotten to ride it. So it's like, at the end of the day, I sit there, I'm like, hey, I'm putting it all on black, putting it all on red. That's at the end of the day, you really have to sit there and say, what do I want to spend my money on? And what do I want to spend my time doing? And then I am like really stern about, where's the equipment? Is it an obvious issue? Like, you can't build a 15-foot blind hole on a trail. You know what I mean? Stuff like that.
Yeah,
but
right.
I don't know if that really got to your question. But
No,
No, definitely does.
Yeah.
that was great.
So, what has your experience been with leading, with dealing with just the general public?
Well,
anyway,
right.
We
yeah.
talked about
So-
this a little bit, and I hate to interrupt you, but like, obviously we put on an event, so
Oh,
we
yeah.
deal with the public.
Yep.
We
Oh,
know, and this is something we like. Anybody that puts on an event or anybody that owns something like that, I love hearing this answer. So yeah, please
Absolutely.
Well,
feel free to bash if you need to.
yeah. My whole thing is like, okay, we started the track in 21. It wasn't really a full season. But if you think about it, 21, 22, 23, 24, and now we're on our 5th season, really. I've only probably argued with 4 or 5 people. And, we get thousands of people at the track. So statistically, I mean, if you bounce that off Burger King or Pizza Hut, I'd say we're probably doing pretty good. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of dudes that could be, I watched Cameron lose his shit 2 weeks. Yeah, but that only happened once that season, and there's going to be people that.
You can't please them no matter what.
No,
Well, right. And the thing is, too, like, as a business, you always have to look like restaurants are a great example for every single thing in business. And the biggest problem with people is 99% of people who have a bad time are not going to tell you. They're not going to tell you. They're going to be really responsible, nice people and say, man, Cameron has no clue. I'm never coming back. And so I always say, what I always look at is like, how many laps are guys putting in? Are they having a good time? Are they leaving the track? Like, I did a couple changes this year, and there was just a huge amount of guys leaving the track saying the track was awesome. The track was awesome. I was like, really? Okay,
Yeah.
it made more sense. But yes, here's the thing. Here's what I do too. I don't want you there if you're an asshole. I don't care. I didn't build the track for you. There was a guy this year, he had problems with it. I'm like, leave.
Yeah.
You could tell he just rehearsed to be mean to me, and he wanted to be negative, and I don't want you there. It's that simple. It's like, if you think you're $40, if you think I'm going to get on my knees and do exactly what you want, you don't like me, you don't like my family, you don't like my track, why would I do what you want? There's 80 other people here today who love what we're doing. They are having it. So that's the problem. You can get obsessed with the guy who hates his life, hates his kids, you know what I mean? And is having a horrible time. Or you can be obsessed with the people that come there every weekend. Yeah. There are dudes there every single weekend.
Oh, yeah.
And they love it. And it's like, I'm not going to let this one negative guy, don't come. Watch me have fun. It's like, oh, wow, you didn't give us $40. Oh, no. Okay, don't come.
I have some buddies that are there. It seems they're there every weekend that you guys are open. And they're always trying to invite people.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
So what you got going on seems to be working.
And that's who I built the park for. I didn't build it for like this negative person that's like, I have a terrible time and I want everybody else to. It's like, okay, that's fine, dude. Go ride by yourself, because no one else probably wants to ride with you either.
Those people exist in every facet.
They do. 100%, 100%, dude.
We deal with it on our own, with putting on our own rides.
Oh,
so
yeah.
We tend to know what it's like.
Oh, yeah.
And if we only deal with 4 or 5 people during one of our rides,
oh, yeah,
we did pretty good.
What's FDSR's motto?
We're not happy till you're not happy.
Exactly.
I mean, that's these people. It's like they just have to get through their mind that it's like, and the thing is too, I've never banned anybody.
Yeah.
There's not a single person. There's probably guys out there that I've had arguments with who probably think I don't even remember their name. If they want to come ride, hey, man, have a good time, come ride. I'm literally not even going to remember you. That's how little I've argued with people. There's been a few people that left the gate upset. Hey, it's just part of it.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah. Cameron, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that you've experienced running the facility, or maybe some things that going into it you didn't realize were going to be not issues, but maybe something that was a little harder to deal with than you thought?
Well, I if I'm being honest with you, everything I've done my entire life, I do it, I screw it up, and I get better at it. That's basically everything I did. If you saw the first part I manufactured compared to now, if you came to the first year of the track, I'm sorry. We did our best.
I'd agree with that with the 304 as well. If you come to the first year of our event, sorry.
Yeah, and you know what? There's a lot of places they can't say that like the 304 because they never made anything better.
Yeah. And
there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. I can get in the nitty-gritty of what I prayed about every night. everything in the woods, it's always wet. It's always wet. Every time we went to ride, it's muddy. You can't look. It's always muddy. And then in the motocross track, I was like, okay, we'll probably be closed most of the time because it's so wet around here, right?
Yep.
And I did my market research. I went to Texas because I really get along with the guy, Tyler from MX Factory, and he comes here and he teaches like every other year. So he'll probably come this year. He didn't come last year, and I looked at what those other tracks did and stuff. And I'm telling you what, man, like I went to a lot of people. I'm like, hey, I'm not a motocross expert. I'm not. And I hired a crew to come out and build the track. And, you know, the hardest thing was like the motocross that I grew up with is gone. The level of detail that everybody expects on the track now is just, it's light years beyond what I thought it would be. It takes way more water than I thought it would. The type of soil we have in West Virginia in general is a lot of clay, and that's hard to deal with. And I think it was a lot of that stuff at first that I didn't get right. You know, I could get into each little detail about it. Something you may find interesting is when I started too, nothing on YouTube, nothing prepares you for owning a track. There's a lot of dudes who are like, hey, I went to my local rental place and I got a loader and whoop-de-doo, and I made a jump. There is nothing in common with that of owning a track. There is nothing in common with that. Yeah. And I think the two things that hit me the hardest, like the biggest surprise, was the level of detail that people expect and the amount of water. You know, especially last year with this like what they call it, extraordinarily drought or something. They had some weird
last year was absolutely awful.
So we've talked about this multiple times, but like our event is, we try to be one of the hardest dual sport and adventure rides out there. Yep. And there's places that we ride constantly. And even if it's not raining for months on end, it's dry it's muddy as all get out. Yeah. And those places I'm going through when I'm sweep riding the 304, and I'm like, dude, there's traction everywhere. This is insane. There's no water anywhere.
When I heard that Fetterman Hollow was dry, I was like, there is no way.
That place swallows side-by-side Jeeps and everything. There's no mud anywhere. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, so, you know, and
it was crazy.
In dealing with the public, you know, we had the very loud minority. I'm sure you've
it's squeaky wheel syndrome. Yeah, and we were putting on a practice weekend, we were putting on just over 80,000 gallons of water a weekend. Yeah. And so I think that would be the biggest thing. You know, there's all these little details that, you know, that we could get into too, you know.
In a practice weekend, I mean, you guys put on events also along with.
No, we just like races, you're saying, or anything like that? No, I don't do any races. I did races in 23, and I would literally come to the track I would work basically Wednesday, and I'd be there till dark. And then Thursday, I would be there before the sun come up, and I would work until it was dark. And then Friday, I would be there before the sun come up, and I was there until it was dark. And then Saturday, same thing. Sunday, same thing. And you know, to try to get this really nice track for everybody to race on, and we did more prep to the kids track too, because that was really who came out to race was the kids. And I didn't like it. It was like working a shift at Pizza Hut or something. It just was the stress of like, you didn't want to screw people's points up and getting everything scored right. We make more money and we have a better time and people have a better environment. And I have always wanted to just be the practice facility. Yeah. The whole thing of this, if you go back to what I said at the beginning, I set this whole thing up for dudes that want to come and have a place to practice, to do good at GNCCs, to do good at the local Harris Scrambles. And also too, we haven't had motocross in this area in, I don't know, when I started, it was like, what, 15 years, 10 years? I don't know.
Absolutely. 04, 05, probably last time.
Right. And I started in 21.
I was a kid going to Golden Valley, and it closed shortly after that.
So, and I kind of, that's why, and the only reason I did races is we had this huge amount of people that were like, oh, hey, have a race. Hey, have a race. Have a race. They would every day at the gate, there would be 30-40% of people saying, hey, have a race. That's the only reason I did it. Yeah. I have no interest in race promotions. I have always wanted to just be a quality place to come practice. That's my goal. It's always been, a quality, safe place to practice.
I think it's a great business model for a lot of guys. I have a lot of interest in it because, like, this is my first year racing.
Yeah.
29, I'm not getting any younger.
Right.
I need to just go ahead and get that under my belt.
Yeah.
And my son's racing also. He'll be racing dirt bikes. And it just sounds like, for me, it sounds like a great place to come out, practice, and spend some time.
Yeah.
Well, and there's one thing too, like I would really like to talk about that a lot, is practice. The average rider in West Virginia, we have some of the best riders in the world. I would argue our average rider is better than the average rider in other countries, the average rider in the United States. Our average rider
100%.
is a great rider. And, you know, like if you look at the way people, dirt bike, privateer, it's so, the sport is such a privateer sport. The way people practice is stupid. It's stupid.
Yeah.
There is no other way of putting it. I am sorry, but it is just dumb. They put the exact same thing in and get the exact same result out.
Yep.
And that's something, you know, too, that I think the park can give you a huge advantage of. And I've met a lot of pros who ride professional motocross or in the woods, and a lot of them still practice the stupid way. Some of them practice a really smart way. The really, really good ones practice a smart way. But a lot of our sport is held back. You know, we don't practice the way that the NFL does or the NBA or, you know, I've taught military for years now. And when I go teach these classes, they would never practice the way that dirt bikers practice.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a cool opportunity about the park. And that's something that I don't think a lot of riders around here get. You get 3 tracks a day. And one of the biggest things that I see that really separates the amazing top end riders from the dudes who are just really fast is the really, really top high end riders. All 3 of those tracks, they dominate.
Yeah.
Especially the wet one in the morning. I could not tell you how many riders I've met they're better than I'll ever be on a dirt bike. But they get their ass kicked by a wet track in the morning. You know, if you want any ruts at all that day, it has to be wet. And I've seen so many great, talented riders that they can't qual at a national, and they can't do real good in the mud. Well, that's an amazing thing to practice at our place.
I tend to make it a point to try to make it out when it is either raining or the day after it's been raining, because generally I'm a glutton for punishment. The easiest way to get better is to suffer.
Dude,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how many times growing up as a kid, like you go to Pyramid Valley and, you know, I wasn't a good, fast motocrosser. I could hold my own. I was mid-pack, you know, 85 class. But, dude, whenever it rained and it got really bad, I dominated because those guys didn't ride in that kind of conditions. I was out there racing, you know, Paul Kuntz hair scramble races.
But there's another thing, too, on top of that. Like, because I agree 100% with what you're saying. But, like, when they cut like a fresh hair scramble track and that gets rained on, that ride's completely different than a hard packed track.
Right.
That's the thing about what we do at 93. Every single day we fully rip it and we till it, and we have pretty hard dirt. That's just what West Virginia has.
Right.
And we add things to it. But, you know, I think a lot of guys who are really talented are missing out on the 3 tracks you get with motocross a day. And that was something I didn't know when I started the park, is you really do get 3 tracks. The first track of the day that was ripped the night before, maybe tilled that morning or tilled that night, just depends on how wet it is and stuff. That track rides completely different at 2 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
And then by the end of the day where it's hard pack and dusty, that ride's completely different as well. And I'm telling you right now, if you want to be a better rider, dominate all 3 of those, because they're the top guys that come to my track. They dominate every single one of those. And it's a big difference.
We deal with a lot of that in the dual sport world just because we ride in such a vast area.
Oh, yeah.
That, like, you know, we can be in some place that's super muddy, like Fetterman, that holds tons of water. And in the next place we're on hard pack, and then we're immediately back into some.
Now, get me a tire that's great at all of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't have a tire that's great at a 4 feet of mud and then you're on the interstate. We've
got some pretty solid combos
Yeah.
that do work really
Yeah,
well, but they're not perfect in everything.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that makes you a better rider, I think, too, like
It
you're
does.
saying, you know. And then the size of bikes you guys are throwing around too as a dual sport, that's great exercise in my opinion. Like when you ride a bigger bike like that in the woods,
Come
it
ride the
whips
Africa
your
Twin with
ass.
me, 521 pounds. It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm about
Yeah,
to
I
put,
think it.
I'm about to put my Aprilia Touareg through, and myself really through the paces with James here on the next 24 hours of Appalachia. So
Super excited. Hey, they just announced the Southern Ohio run there in May.
I wish I could make that one. I guess if Trump shuts the border down altogether and they close Mexico, I'll be there. But
China.
as of right
Yeah.
now, I unfortunately won't make that one. But I am really excited. So
Awesome.
yeah, throwing around a big bike is a whole different thing.
100%.
I'll come out and do some motocross on the Africa Twin.
I'm fine with that.
Dude,
Yeah, man. You know, that's the thing I think people would be really surprised by is the huge mix of bikes that we do get.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's cool. It is cool. There's some horrific examples though. There was this one kid a couple years ago. He couldn't jump anything. He was on a like a CRF 150.
Yeah.
I swear to you, he rode for at least 6 hours straight that day with no gloves. It just and he would just roll everything. He was probably 16 years old, 17, and he got every dollar's worth he could. Man,
You know what? There's a big difference in the guy that shows up on a CRF 150. He shows up and he puts in a whole day.
Oh,
work,
yeah.
and
Oh,
the
yeah.
guy that sits behind a keyboard and
Yeah.
doesn't do anything at all.
100%, and it shows you the grit of some of these guys.
Absolutely.
We get the dual sport guy that we get is they come to the gate and they'll stop there and they'll watch for a little bit and then they'll just want to do one lap. I just want to do. We had that so many times.
Yeah.
I'm like, go down and do one lap. No one cares, and they'll have like a full. I mean, like Africa Twin level dual sport, and they'll go do one lap on the moto track and then leave. You know, but we get an amazing mix. There was a badass dude on a Husqvarna. It was like one of the last weekends we were open. And it had to be like, I mean, at the newest and 77, 78, I would think.
That's
I'm
cool.
not an expert at that,
Yeah,
but yeah, it was dual shocks on the rear, and he was passing people. People were getting really upset, dude. They were like shit, like you could tell, dude. And he was hitting the double.
Yeah.
It's like a 30, 35 foot jump, depending where you go. And he was hitting the double on it. And he was a badass. It's like it's cool.
One of the biggest things I've learned in riding in like the dual sport world that we ride in is that it does not matter how much older somebody is than you.
Oh yeah.
They will make
yeah.
you feel like you've never ridden a bike. in your life.
Dan Farnsworth.
Absolutely, Dan Farnsworth.
There was a few dudes I rode bicycles with. I like gravel bikes to keep in shape.
Yeah.
And they're in their 70s.
Yeah.
And they're like killing guys on these climbs. I'm like, son of a bitch, dude.
We rode past a really big group of mountain bikers when we were in
Is it
when we did our
Brandywine?
Brandywine ride.
Yeah.
And man, the amount of energy they had to expend just to get up
Oh,
that
yeah.
mountain that we were
Oh
riding.
yeah.
Of course, I'm being an asshole too.
Me too.
Me
too.
I ride past him and act like
I've
I'm
gotta
pedaling
pedal.
off. The
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah,
pass
that's
a
funny.
bicycle and not pedal. There's just no way.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. Guys.
It just is what it is. They just get used to it. It just is what it is.
Hey, if I'm pulled over and they come by and they start going, wah, wah,
Yeah.
it's all fair.
Yeah, dude.
It's all fair.
Cameron, what are some of your future goals that you'd like to see with Track 93 in the long run?
You know, in the real long run, what do I want to do? Probably get some more facilities up there. Probably have a way to have concessions of some type. The track, I'm always trying to do things different with the track. And you know, I have some little projects planned. I added a few jumps last year, and just I think overall my goal is get some more help. You know, to where it's because it's just me and my dad really right now. Now
we know all about what you're saying.
Yeah, I have some great guys that come out and volunteer. There's a laundry list of dudes, you know, that come out and they do things. Jason McHugh and Jeff Sherry and Seth Sherry and Tim Ash and Tim Hunn. You know, there's some great guys that come and help me do stuff. I would say my long-term goal is like, at this point, I have really good dirt consistency. Because like the first year, what I struggled with was drainage. It was always too wet.
Yeah.
Second year, couldn't get it wet enough. Then the third year, it was like, okay, you're getting it wet enough, but you need to like make some jumps better. And then the fourth year was just more improvement on that. And then I got better implements. I kind of learned, because that's the thing. You can't pull up a tutorial and say, hey, how exactly do I do this on motocross? And, they don't know your material. They don't know these things. So I think my long-term goal is, again, that same thing. Let's just keep on that same curve, make more quality of the track, make it more safe, make all the jumps better, make the dirt quality better. That's really what I focused on last year, was what can I do to make this dirt better? What can I add to it? Because I've really got the watering roads down. Like next year, my goal is to really have watering roads on Bobberry Hill. It's a pretty steep hill, but I think I have it planned out to where I can cut watering roads, because it's hard to water right now. We water it, but it's not as efficient as if you had a road beside it.
Right.
So a lot of stuff like that. Expand the woods loop. Have a bigger woods loop where it's, I can dress it. But I would say my long-term goal is add more people to have better tracks, more dirt quality, have some more features in the woods, stuff like that. I'm always dreaming. I'm a dreamer guy, so I'm always thinking about what can I do to try and make it better for everybody.
Yeah. So I mean, you're doing a lot of work for a lot of other people, but you have a pretty solid stable of bikes here.
Yeah.
You
Thanks,
want to go
man.
through some of those?
So this side here are mine.
Okay.
This side over here is like a mix of my dad, my brother, my friend. But this side here is mine.
Lots of orange for those that can't see.
Yeah.
A lot of
So
orange.
there's nothing wrong with that.
A lot of really cool two-strokes in here.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. So before the plague times, before COVID was kind of right when I got into riding, and my dad always loved a 1999 KTM. So I was riding a KDX 200, and then I actually went and bought a KX 500 off a guy for real cheap. And so I had a KDX 200 and I had a KX 500, and we went out, and there was a guy that had a 1999 KTM where this guy's nephew had blown it up. He was still paying payments on it. It was like a month or two old. And so my dad was like, oh, I want this 99. So we went out, got this bike, and I rode it. And I was like, oh, man, I like this bike too. It's a really cool, simple bike. And so I kind of built it. But I went and got I got a 300, but then I also got the 380. So my two favorite bikes is probably my 99 380, my 2000 380. Another weird thing, me and my dad love in the woods, we love conventional forks. And
I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah, we're really big. That RM, that 98 RM has the conventional forks that me and him love.
It's one of the best ones ever made.
Yeah, I love the fork. It's a great fork. It's really versatile. I love it on the motocross track. I love it in the woods. The clickers actually mean something. So that's fun. and so I basically, if you look throughout, I've not even rode that RM yet. It's kind of sitting there for me. I've got a YZ and then a 450. So my main woods bikes are a KTM 380, and then and then the XR.
Sorry, I can't help myself.
Now the thing was, here's the thing: I had never rode a modern 4-stroke, and then this year they were selling them so cheap I couldn't go not try one. Because my brother has the 300 SX, the new 300 SX. I love that bike too. But I was like, nobody has a 450 I feel comfortable crashing. So I was like, I need to go buy. And I tell you, I really, really like the 24 450 that I have. I don't like the forks on it. I don't like the air forks. They're just not for me, I don't think.
I also think you don't like the spokes, right?
Yeah, the spokes are shit. There is absolutely, it is just comical. They're made out of Play-Doh. I know a lot about metallurgy. Someone lied to someone what those spokes are made out of, because it's not what they spec'd out. I guarantee it. Whatever they wrote down on that spec sheet to be that spoke is not what they put in it. I can guarantee you that. Someone got lied to. They are not made correctly. I can guarantee you that. So yes, I have to get new wheels for my brand new bike. But yeah. And yeah, I mean, it would love to see a set of Olin's on it too.
There you
front
go.
forks would be nice. But
Yeah. So one last thing here. Obviously, you're also a gun guy. And a lot of people that watch our show are gun people too. So speak on what you guys do on the gun side of things.
So I started Childers Guns in 2012, and we focus mainly on the AK-47, what most people think is an AK-47. And our bread and butter is we make the square sheet metal piece that holds everything together. That's the receiver for an AK-47. And yeah, God bless me with it working out quite well. And that's what built everything. I'm not talking politics at all, but Obama bought the building we're in right now. And then, COVID bought the track. So you could write gun on a stick and people were buying them. There was crazy amounts of demand at that time in all the gun arena. Probably one of the biggest things I did with AK-47s in America was I basically got the ATF to make a true determination of when a gun becomes a gun. And that really changed AK building in America in a lot of ways, because it basically made it to where there was this defined line in the sand. So, and that gets really complex, but we specialize in heat treating, machining, and welding. We do some stamping here as well. That's something we're getting more into. And we build really high-end AKs and sell them to companies too. Recently we've been building some really high-end AKs. We just did a few batches of those. And that's really, I started out in a garage and I figured out how to heat treat these parts in a garage like an actual factory. And that led to one thing, led to another, and then they got it all worked out.
Yeah.
Sweet.
And you guys can't see it here. But on the other side of the camera here is like lots of CNC machines, end mills, lathes.
The only thing I'd ask is we need some. I need an RPK mount for the Africa Twin. We put that on the handlebar.
Yeah,
it'd be great.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure, man. I've thought to myself, because I have a few belt-fed machine guns. My favorite belt-fed machine gun is the PKM.
Yeah.
And I've wondered, can I jump my bike and then shoot it? Like, I want to get like a stunt guy, kind of like Tyler from MX Factory or something. To be like, I'm going to put a steel target up. You're going to hit this jump, and we're going to film this. You're going to shoot this at the same time, that you're jumping. I always thought that would be cool.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
A perfect Mythbusters episode.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to transition us into some industry news. We got some pretty exciting things going on right now. So let's play this. Well, first up is something that we shared on the Facebook page, and it's been blowing up crazily huge, and that is Kawasaki announcing a two-stroke. So, love to get you guys' thoughts on this, but make two-strokes great again. Kawasaki releases a teaser video suggesting a return to two-strokes in the near future. Mix some gas and let the good times roll, eh? So, one thing I'll say about this, I owned a 2006 KX250, and as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the best two-stroke engines I ever rode or owned in my life. Now, the chassis was a little cramped for me being 6'2", but yeah. What do you guys think about the resurgence of Kawasaki of all brands into the two-stroke market?
Yeah,
That's kind of exciting.
I love seeing some of the Japanese manufacturers moving back to their two-stroke roots. I've never ridden a Kawasaki two-stroke aside from my son's KX65, so I don't have much time on one. But man, I just would love to see them come out with something for the market again.
I'm gonna put a friend of the program right on the spot, and that's Mr. Ryan Melton from MXG. I got a note from him saying that all sources and indications are pointing to it being a 300 off-road two-stroke. So
we would absolutely love to see that.
Oh, absolutely.
I couldn't be more excited. I was one of those people that commented, which I thought was totally pointless, because I put on there, I was like, make a 300 two-stroke KDX with E-Start, and you're going to be super competitive. It fits that niche. I mean, that's, you look at the market, like, and I could not be more excited. I don't care what it is. If it's an adult bike, I'm going to go buy it, just to show that they made a choice that I think the market really wants. I think it would be cool to have another player in there. And can you get Honda back on board? And I love Kawasaki. I would still be riding a KDX, but I'm just too. Yeah, there we go.
Can't
baby.
see it, but yeah, I'm an idiot.
So a KDX 300 to me would be insane. I'm there to buy it. I'm big for a KDX 200. That's why I don't ride those anymore.
Right.
You know, I fried the clutches in it all the time. I just
I
weigh
tried
too
one
much. I'm
too.
too big of a guy. So I love everything about it. I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense in the marketplace. You know,
It definitely does.
yeah.
I definitely didn't expect them to come back saying, "Hey, we're going to make adult two-strokes again."
No, me neither.
But
No.
it's also insane to me that it's taken this long for the Japanese manufacturers to stick their legs back in.
Right.
The enduro market is exploding, and it has been. It's probably, especially hard enduro and enduro cross. I mean, they're as big as they've ever been now, and to me, it blows my mind that it's taken this long for them to start taking notice to it.
I agree with that. I think you can kind of see the paradigm shift a little bit with the Japanese manufacturers. I don't know if it's KTM struggles and they see kind of the
Some blood in the
the
water.
blood in the water like a shark, but of all of them, Kawasaki really has been at the forefront here the last couple of years. You
Yep.
look at the 450X and 250X Woods bikes that are
Yep.
based on the motocross bikes. You really wouldn't see that from a lot of different Japanese manufacturers. They have the yet to be released middleweight adventure bike.
Yep.
Which maybe we see at AIM Expo next week. I don't know. Hopefully, and then now with the two-stroke. So
I think Japanese business. I study it a lot. I am fascinated by Japanese business, like the way that they handle things. I'm fascinated by the video game market. If you look at the way that they competed in the 90s, we had all these different formats and stuff coming out. And I think if you look at the Japanese manufacturers, and I think I have an interesting kind of look at it because we make tooling here. And people don't understand what an injection molding die costs for the fairing that doesn't do anything on the side.
Yeah.
That's a part of the motorcycle where it's like, oh, if it was shaped like a maple leaf, it would still work the same, but they don't understand how much money it costs just to make this new piece of plastic.
Right.
And so I think look at Yamaha. The tooling was paid for many, many years ago. I'm sure it's been replaced a few times ago.
same bike since 05.
And think of how cheap the parts are and how they're in. And then every year they get to go to their suppliers and they're like, hey, let's cut down the price a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that coupled with they have other industries.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's not, if you study the Japanese manufacturers, they make other things.
Yeah.
KTM, look where they're at. Because they kind of went through the same thing. Yes, I'm an extremely small company compared to these big conglomerates. But during COVID, they had this huge, massive amount of parts to make. They swung up to do that. And then look what kind of KTM did. They thinned things down by making, in the market's eyes, a gas, a Husky, and a KTM, they're the same bike. Sorry. 90% of riders are going to say, same bike.
Yeah.
If how much more are you willing to pay for a gas over a Husky over a KTM? It's negligible amount. So they didn't really develop any niche product.
Right.
And Kawasaki doing this is very smart. Can they come in? I mean, they come in $2,000 cheaper than a KTM, $1,500 cheap. You've got Americans scraping pennies at this point, dude.
Absolutely.
If you come in $1,000 cheaper than an enduro bike right now, it's going to sell well.
Well, and there's such a cult following anyway. With most of the Japanese.
yeah.
I mean, 90% of us grew up riding motocross bikes in the woods anyway.
I'm going to buy it regardless. I'm going to buy if I can get one. I'm going to buy it regardless.
Put the deposit down. Let's go.
Yeah, if I can find a place, I'll call Waynesburg when you know what I mean. But we'll see.
One thing you kind of talked about there just a second ago that I see a meme and always laughs at it. It shows a guy and he's like, he just bought a brand new YZ 450 at the dealership, and they're like, well, congratulations, sir. Is there anything else I can do for you? You know what I really need to go with this? What's that, sir? I need a synthesizer keyboard. Do you know anybody I can help you with?
Yeah.
Buddy, I can help you out right now.
Yeah,
Let's go
exactly.
upstairs. Yamaha.
Well, and people forget that. They forget statistics really quick because, look what I'm involved in. How many people do you know right now that built an AK-47 at their home?
Yeah.
I sell to thousands of people around the country because of that, and it's a rare thing, and I know that. Riding dirt bikes and riding dual sports the way you guys do, that's a rare thing. You don't go and that people forget because that's their world. They forget there's a lot of people that want to go play golf instead. They have no interest in doing what we
Yeah.
do, hurting ourselves. They have no interest in that.
We realistically ride dirt bikes with license plates.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's what
Yeah,
it
and there's
is.
very
Right.
few
Dual
dual
sport.
sport guys who even do that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's a rare sport, really.
All right, next up, we got some restructure news. Restructure ready? Maybe. Stefan Pierre, KTM's head honcho since 1992, has stepped down, while Gottfried Neumeiser assumes CEO duties. This appears to be step one in the effort to satisfy the creditors and continue their solvency efforts. So we've talked about this on the show before. You know, KTM's kind of in dire straits right now. This was the first of many steps to try to get them back on track. You know, I heard that there was some offers from CF Moto and Bajaj, the Indian company.
Yep.
So, you know, KTM wouldn't be Austrian anymore, but they are doing everything in their absolute power to keep that from happening. So this
Yeah.
is step one. You kind of see the writing on the wall, but it is kind of a shame to see the guy that kind of spearheaded KTM being the ready to race kind of enthusiast driven business model kind of have to step away and give way to the board meeting and creditor side of things.
Yeah, it's kind of odd. We're seeing with what's happening with KTM is kind of the opposite of what the Japanese manufacturers have been doing, where KTM's kind of spread themselves really thin, having 3 separate brands under one
Yeah.
umbrella, and
With
the Japanese market is just stepping into.
But they've forgotten where their bread is buttered.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
don't know where their bread is buttered anymore. And you know, like you're saying, they spread themselves. Selling units isn't making money on units. Oh, okay, great. You dominated at what? Not being able to pay your employees in December. You know, it's a shift in goals. What was the goal in 1999? The goal in 1999 was, hey, you know, other manufacturer does not have a race-ready bike. We're sitting here, we're putting new rims on it, we're putting different handlebars on it. We're instantly having to put a Cerebus plastic, a Cherubies, however you want to say it, on the bike. We're doing all these things to mod this bike, and that was where the bread was buttered.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then now you're getting this thing where it's like, well, what's the goal with KTM anymore? The goal with KTM is obviously to move these crazy amount of units that was not making them a really high margin. So you have this bike that was originally a high quality made, lesser. You saw how many Hondas to a KTM back in the day.
Yeah.
I mean, it was 10-1 in
There-
2000.
And there's still a price gap between
Oh, yeah.
Pierre Mobility
Well,
and
and-
other manufacturers anyway.
Oh, yeah. But then I also look at too, like, well, they make the frames in China now.
Yeah,
I think that's-
some of the 2 strokes have cylinders. made
CF
in
Moto
China,
cylinders
CF
on them? Yeah.
CF Moto.
And the thing is, too, it's like, well, how long until they just copy that tooling? I mean,
They do it all the time.
people don't understand how machine shops work. I mean, but that's the thing. Another thing no one wants to admit, no one has the manufacturing base that China does.
Yeah.
Right.
Nowhere in the entire world. Every mountain bike is made in Singapore now.
Yeah.
You know, so people forget. It's like, well, if you want a stamping die made, you're not getting it made in the United States. You're getting made overseas. and they just forget this stuff. I don't know. I would like to see KTM go more in the route of like what Sherco's trying to do right now. Like build a bike that is what you guys originally were doing, a high end, make it
Right.
expensive. It
Right.
has to be expensive.
Yeah.
Put nice forks on it. How are YZ forks better than yours? How? Just copy
KYB,
that.
baby.
KYB.
Just take. Can we
KYB.
mail them a set for them to unscrew? Can we just? I mean, can you guys do that? I mean, because they're better. Hate to tell you.
Triple SK Albas are the
Yeah,
best.
I mean, sorry. Okay.
All right, last and certainly not least, Harley announces a street version of their Pan Am off-road bike dubbed the ST. This is essentially a supermoto version of the off-road variant with lower suspension and 17-inch wheels. We got a quick little picture of it. So if you want to be a brother with not being completely brother, there you go. You have an option for a supermoto ST.
It's
So
kind of cool, man. For your more adventure touring kind of guys,
Right.
That's like a pretty good middle ground.
you want to dip your toes in Harley without getting a full
Do you
bag
have
or
to buy the
anything.
jacket? You think with that too?
Oh,
do you
yeah.
have-
I think it
Probably.
comes with it.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah. Once you spend over
curious.
like 15 grand, I just throw it. in
Yeah,
for
dude.
you.
It comes with the diapers to clean up
Yeah.
the oil spill underneath of it when you
Yeah.
go to the garage. Yeah. All right, that's going to lead us to our last and certainly not least segment of the show, and everyone's favorite, Had to Lay Her Down.
Did you run into some clippings? Did Barb take the kids? Well, Hoss, maybe you had to lay her down.
This week's Had to Lay Her Down is brought to us by the Brothers of Tenere and Endurista del Weekend. And this is what I like to affectionately refer to as target fixation clippings. Let's let the clip play.
Oh no.
He was okay. But yeah, typical situation where you're staring at the front fender too long, not looking at the ground in front of you, and go off a cliff. So this guy's very, very lucky to
quite
to still be
frankly, an
alive.
issue that I have is target fixation. As soon as I see the thing that I'm like, that's what I'm going to mess up on, I focus too much on that. I'm going to mess up on it.
I am not a bailer. I ride that thing out. My mind is like, nah, we're just going to stick. I will bail, but we have to get pretty bad off before it's like, you know what I mean? Like I'm going to bail. I'm kind of like, let's see where this goes.
I'm the kind of guy that I'm going to try it as many times as it takes for me to get there. Like,
right.
I can't just, I can't let it go.
Up is up, right?
Up is up.
I think in that clip too, it's like maybe he was coming in hot and he just convinced himself he couldn't turn.
Yeah. That
and then
happens too.
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah, they like convinced it,
That's
and then
what target fixation really is.
and
like.
then
I'm done.
and then they also lock up. People forget like you need your wheels to roll. Like they forget like, oh, I'll lock it up and I'll try to turn.
You're not going to turn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
If it's not rolling, it's not turning.
I've never went off a side of a hill that bad. I don't think. No, I've ended up in the bush. You know what I mean? But
definitely been in some situations, but not one like that.
no, thank God, nothing like.
I believe
that.
Irish.
That's
has
kind
shared a
of
picture recently on one of our videos or posts of him in a similar situation.
Yeah,
so
that
it definitely is not far from
hot dogging down the mountain.
hot
Kind of
yeah,
goes off
yeah,
the side. He
yeah.
ended up totaling that 701. So that was interesting. We did have a couple of comments here. We want to thank you guys for tuning in this evening. Scotty Benson, who's a good buddy of ours, is asking, is the wood track open yet?
Oh yeah, we got the single. Well, like right now, no, nothing's open right now.
Just
No,
joking around a little bit.
no, no,
So-
not right. There was people texting. People text the track all winter long.
Yeah.
And this one guy texting. It was like 2 weeks ago when we had like what I don't know. It was like 16 inches of snow or 12.
Negative 15. Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, and he texted, he was like, hey, is the track open? I'm like, it must be really nice where you're at. I'm like, it's not, I'm like, and he was like, oh yeah, I'm down by Florida. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I sent him a picture of what it looked like. That's what I do a lot of times. I just send him a picture of what it looks like outside. And they're like, oh, never mind. I told the one guy because people text in, and I told the one guy, I was like, people couldn't even get to the track to ride right now. I'm like, no.
Not happening.
Yeah.
Last up, Dave Porter just got to practice on the R1200 GS. Now, you don't know Dave. We know Dave. He is an absolute animal. And if you want to see somebody scrub a BMW giant boxer motor across the track, he can do it. I guarantee it.
He's the guy.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. Everybody likes that guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's cool.
Well, that's going to do it for us this evening. Cameron, I want to thank you for
thank you
letting us
guys.
come over and hang out, talk with you, learn about the track, and learn about you,
absolutely.
man.
I love the opportunity to be here. This is the first podcast I've ever done. And
Cool.
I'm
Glad we could pop that cherry for you.
yeah, exactly, man. I appreciate you guys even considering me.
Absolutely.
That's great, man. I really appreciate that. I want to thank you guys for just even asking me to come.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate it. Kind of an exciting week next week. I will be heading to Las Vegas for the AIM Expo. Lots of cool things out there. I'm going to try not to gamble all my money away. Give you guys some updates on some new models coming out from the different manufacturers and different, gear suppliers, parts suppliers, what have you. The plan is to I'll post some stuff up on the Facebook page, and then Thursday night at some point, me and Trevor will try to do a recap show, and I'll talk to you all about what I saw and try to show that. So looking forward to that, and that's going to do it for us here this evening on Tallboys
and Trackmasters.
Thanks, Cameron. We appreciate you, man.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.